Okay. Meeting of the Auburn Industrial Development Authority Finance Committee will come to order. Roll call, please.
So I'm not sure who's on the finance committee, Mr. Dacey
Here.
and Tessa,
Here.
and I don't know.
I think it's
do
Terry
you
Cuddy,
think
but
it's
that's
Terry?
okay. That's okay. Okay, Tessa.
Okay, so I know that last month it looked like you didn't have any activity, and it seems to be the same for this month.
Yeah, not a lot's
So-
been happening. There's one bill that we'll see this month. It's gonna be, the CEDA money is the only bill we're gonna have this month, so. There hasn't been a whole lot going on
And how often do you have to pay that bill?
quarterly.
That's part of it.
And otherwise, I haven't seen any coming up, but there are frequently small, like, website fees from GoDaddy. I was trying to remember who it's with, but they're not very high, so there just isn't a whole lot of bills that are coming in now for this group.
Okay, the admin fees, does that include the quarterly payment to CEDA?
I think that's under contract services.
Okay,
Down below, so
so
admin fees would be anticipated fees that you might get on some transaction you would do.
okay. So we're paid up to the end of the year.
Well, there'll be one more for CEDA, there'll be one more at the end of December. One more bill that they'll send us, because this is, the one we're gonna pay tonight is the September bill, September 30th, for third quarter, so there'll be a fourth quarter due to CEDA.
So that's the first quarter coming up. Yeah.
Well, it's the fourth quarter of this year. It'll be dated December 31st. The bill, so it'll be the last.
First
one
quarter
for this
24
year.
or
No, it'll be the fourth quarter of 23.
fourth quarter?
Yeah,
Well, then I thought it was 5,000 a quarter.
it is. This is the budget. This is a budget here, unless you're in, are you on the financial reports? Well, that's because, let me
Okay,
see,
projected, okay, yeah,
yeah. This is
Okay.
for next year
understood.
projections, yeah.
Okay,
So with this being my first budget process, I'm probably gonna go through lots of questions rather than summarize. So for each, so here's the 23 budget, and I'm just looking at your year-to-date report in there. So for the 24 proposed, is that based on what a lot of things that we can estimate based on, because it seems like the information that we received through CEDA, there's a lot of things that are happening at once, so we're estimating this budget, or we're proposing this budget based on things in the works, or what,
It's more like a
again,
wish list
Okay,
budget, things that we're hoping will happen.
so like the admin fees though, like,
Those are,
That-
yeah, I mean, that's gonna be strictly based on, sometimes there are fees associated if property sold or working with groups that wanna buy property or whatever, so.
does that include the pilot, if we had a pilot,
Well, I needed to ask
Percentage.
somebody, do we get any fee out of the, because I just invoiced
yeah, we do.
the world for pilots, so I need to figure out what there must be some kind of.
The problem is you
associated
can't,
with that.
you really can't project. If Maureen had something that was very close to being, then we
Yeah.
could project it in the budget, but otherwise, it's,
Yeah, it's really, I mean, frankly, in my mind, all budgets are like sort of big lies, because you put in what you hope for, you look at kind of what went on this year, you look at anything that you know is gonna happen, but then you try to project based on what the possibilities
Well,
are.
and I guess that's what I'm asking with the projects that are in works right now. Like, how long does that revenue last? Like, do you know? Like, is this number able to be based on projects that are in the work right now, or does that not work?
We would have been paid for them by now.
Oh,
And that's why the P and L is so important, because this is a projection, but this is the actual,
That's real.
and, you know, we update it once a month because of that. It is a guesstimate, there's no doubt about it. I don't see anything glaring here that,
I don't know if there are. Okay.
the only question I had was about professional services. Since we're not using that group for the internet or for
Marketing.
the marketing, that comes under, it's going under your budget.
I think this is the marketing line down.
Yeah.
You see that,
I see it down there, but
Yeah, mostly what's under professional services is the cost of the audit.
okay. And then that's reasonable. Okay. Do you feel comfortable with that number for marketing?
15,000. I would say so. Yeah. Was this number negotiated as something different though?
Yeah.
I thought that was negotiated
Maybe that's what I was referring to.
when you were talking about admin fees. Contract services.
Well, the contract services aren't the same as the admin.
What are
fees.
The contract services, that's the 20,000 that's paid to CEDA.
Right, was that not renegotiated to a higher amount?
There was talk about it, but it hasn't
Wasn't
been,
done
as far as I know,
What's the
it's
likelihood of
still
that
the
happening?
same.
up to the 8 or
Yeah, no, as far as I know, that's still the same 20,000 that it's been. There was
No,
nothing.
we haven't
new,
talked about
actually.
us getting an increase.
Okay.
We haven't done a lot of discussion in that area, so.
The county IDA was negotiated up. They pay 7,500 a quarter,
Right.
which I know back Mike was hoping to get Ada up to that too, but
So it wasn't done.
honestly, Ada's not sitting on as much money as the county group is, so I don't know.
I think we should leave it at that, and if it does change, then we'll make the adjustment in the P and L. Okay, does that sound good?
Yeah, that can all
It's
be,
the projects
always
that
be
are-
renegotiated.
Normally, we would know what that number is by now, but we don't, so I mean, we have to assume that it's going to stay the same.
Yeah, now does your contract run out at the end of this year with CEDA? So there has to be a whole new contract negotiated, I guess.
But everything's up in the air.
Things are so up in the air, it's hard to, yeah, I think it's best to stick with what is for now.
So, the marketing piece, so it looks like last year there was a lot more budgeted for marketing than this year.
There were some changes made, like in the website and so on, the provider changed, and I think there were sort of extra expenses to migrate the data from one website to the new one. Am I right about that? That we moved things over, and so
And we
there
were
shouldn't be
overpaid.
as much expense next year for the website as there was this year, because a lot of new things were done.
So it looks like through September, the actual amount that was spent was 9,000. So are you anticipating a lot more from October to December of this year?
I don't think, unless you know something Lauren's working on,
No, I
but
don't think she has any plans.
Yeah.
That's not
That's-
proportional for the whole year. That was a one time, transfer of all the files of the website to a different host for the website.
And that should be static now.
yeah, I mean, the expenses are gonna be sort of routine GoDaddy stuff and some occasional $25 radio spots maybe.
Just 'cause I'm just thinking, I err on the conservative side, so. And kind of thinking worst case scenario is costs are going up. I mean, I think it's typical that contracts costs go up, so if this marketing might not, there might be some wiggle room from marketing and to contract services. Like you might have overestimated maybe possibly in marketing.
Yeah, I mean, really, unless,
And then
Hello.
I
if
think the
the
only thing in contract services is the CEDA contract.
So. And again, I'm just thinking that
oops, no, those are old.
this everything is going on,
We
so.
get you.
So I'm just thinking if there'd be. just
Yeah.
We
thinking of
could,
some
we
wiggle
could,
room.
we could guess that it's going to be X amount of dollars, but that's only a guess.
Yep. I know, and again, I'm just being conservative and not
Yeah.
trying to be doom and gloom, but just.
Everything, the
That's-
marketing, the active as you've been, maybe that we might want to increase that.
But if there's some room in that marketing.
This is, I don't know, we're looking at the budget for next year right now for finance.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, there was kind of a big do-over during 2023 that's not gonna be happening. Hopefully again very soon.
Looks like just the board budgeted a significant amount for that swap, and we came in way under that, right? In terms of 57,000 for marketing in the 23 budget, and not costing a lot less.
Well, and if you look at it, the budgeted amount for marketing for 2023 was $57,000 and we're not even close to that.
Right.
So
I
you,
think that was part
you
of
would
the
feel
information
comfortable with that?
but
just a 3,000 increase in that?
I think with what Lauren can do through everything she's doing with CEDA, are you saying, Tess, that you wanna increase it from 15 to something more?
For marketing? No, I'm thinking. Marketing. I'm thinking. Just thinking a lot of things with contracts every year, there's always some sort of increase, right? Like the same thing with your audit. I mean, that's a lot of money, that's crazy, but they will probably come back and be like, okay, well, we're gonna raise it 3% or 4% or something. So I just didn't know, like, with it, if the contract for CEDA was 20,000 last year, is there?
Just a little bit of history, before, Elaine merged with that other company.
Right.
We kept, she kept it fairly close, but I think that with the new group that we're definitely going to see an increase. What that's going to be, I think that's a reasonable amount. I don't see any stumbling blocks in the audit that this coming year that.
Yeah, I agree, and I assume last year was probably the same way, like they're probably, but the year before that. So that's why I'm saying like at $7,500 for the audit lab, you had underestimate, okay. So
There-
you're saying keep it the same,
There were a lot of problems with both the IDA audits with the 2022 audit, but it was what they did in 2023. So it was probably more expensive. That 7,500 was probably a reasonable estimate because could be what they'd already agreed on, but there was just a lot of extra stuff that had to be done because there were some errors that were found that hopefully I'm sure
Unfortunately,
aren't gonna be there next year.
the state. You never know how picky they're going to be.
Yep.
And last year they were they just tore us apart. And so we had to respond, they spent time responding to that. And that did increase our cost.
I mean, I just think even
What do you feel
those types of
comfortable with?
contracts with. There's always an increase, so I guess. And I apologize, because I feel, because this is like number 3 time I'm meeting you guys. So I just assume with all contracts, it's going to slightly go up. And again, erring on the side of just being more conservative and trying to prepare.
But even
I just, already coming in at a negative budget. I'm just thinking like for marketing, like maybe try to stay within more of that $12,000 budget, because CEDA might add another 10% or something based on what's going, I just don't know. So. I mean, ultimately, the bottom line,
But the thing you have to look at is even if the contract for the audit goes up like 10% from what the contract was last year, it's probably going to go down because they won't be spending the extra time figuring out journal entries to fix the issues that they found in it. At least I certainly hope that's not going to happen. But it's, I mean, the budget and the audit for CEDA is actually fairly simple, because when you look at the profit loss, there aren't that many categories, and it shouldn't have been as big of a mess as it was last year, but it just happened that way, kind of. So it was higher this year because of extra time that they wouldn't have and should. I mean, there were like 3 people from the 2 accounting firms doing journal entries and calling and getting
Yeah.
more information and all of that, and it shouldn't be happening that way necessarily.
okay, so 8,700.
Should be more than enough, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the number, I'm just asking a question. I feel like you guys would
Yeah.
know
Well,
what
you were.
would make sense, so I'm sure what you
get the joy
proposed
of
is
sitting
fine.
through
Yes.
in Buffington giving the audit report. It was like, are you people crazy? You know.
Auditors.
Well, if you think that's bad, try with the state.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
No, the good thing is with.
they're of
like,
a
with,
mind
like,
that there should be less ADAs. And the interesting thing is that we and Troy, New York, are the only 2 authorities. And it takes an act of the legislature to rescind us. The other ADAs, they can just close down if they want to, as their agencies. And so they are very picky on us and Troy, because they're frustrated. And it's been an ongoing problem. I feel comfortable with that amount. As long as we stay with we're not changing, we're not going out for RFPs this year, are we?
For what?
RFPs?
The crazy thing for auditing though, who's gonna. They'll have a RFP with Danable, and that's like their only option.
There are other options, but as far as I know, we're gonna stick with,
That was my understanding, that we were gonna stay with them.
yeah.
But there is time that will come, maybe the year after, that we'll have to go out for RFPs. Because you have to do that periodically.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen anything that says like this is your third year with these people, you need to do a new RFP or something.
It would be in the bylaws somewhere, right?
No, it's
That might be a state thing.
It's a
because-
state-
I think it's based on so much money, their, your fund balance, the retained earnings, that puts you below, like if you guys have, if it was like $750,000, I think you have to have a certain, but maybe for ADA's, it's or for IDs. it's different.
We've been with different groups with we've extended this group and it's not been a problem. State hasn't given us a
Yeah.
problem, so. But I think we're good until the end of next year. With that. If I'm not mistaken. Okay, let's talk about the savings account. I like that idea of putting in 5 months.
The generations one.
And
Yeah.
at 5%. I don't like floating.
Do you would you wanna put in like,
I think
maybe not the full
150,
savings, but 150 or something?
150.
Okay,
Would you agree? We've got.
Well, so
well, you did-
you're putting it in a CD and you've got 200 or so 169.
Yeah. For 5 months.
Yeah, so I would get a couple quotes to see,
I got quotes from every bank in the area when the other IDA was doing it. And Generations and Cuba Lake.
and you're
National
at
Bank
generations right now, right?
Had that's where our bank accounts are.
Yeah.
Cuba Lake had a good rate too, but I think since we're doing our other banking at Generations.
Well, and I found that if you bring that rate back, usually the bank that you're with will match it. So I'm sure that they would. So for cash flow purposes, I don't know, I feel like 150,000 is a lot based on that you have 250,000 left and you have a $5,000 bill coming up.
Yeah, but there are expenses on a monthly basis. Other than the CEDA thing that we're doing are really, really low.
Okay.
There'd
Yeah, and I
still
guess
be,
I'm not sure what January.
We're also, I'll
there'd still be 65,000 that we, between checking and the savings that we'd be able to draw. And we're talking 5 months.
Yeah, I just don't know what your January through May typically is, so. That's,
No.
Well, I mean,
What
if
would
you-
you
if
feel
you-
comfortable with?
well, I don't feel comfortable voting on anything right now without knowing what, without being able to look at this January.
There's some around the table.
Probably after, I don't think that right now. Thank you. Tell you what would
I
be
would
good,
just
I
tell
think
you
that Katie would.
We used to have that whole thing in the checking. When we went to the savings. And it's not generating.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I think it makes sense to put it in a CD if you can find, the right balance and the right term. So that,
I mean,
I just would hate like,
if you look at our January through September expenses on here, they're $28,000 for 9 months. So I think that the 65,000 is more than enough to get us through 5 months.
and really like you would know better than. I
And
just,
I feel comfortable with 5 months. I wouldn't want to go in like a year.
Yeah, no, I think 5 months is a good, and then if we make a decision to do something else.
Yeah, a little more where we're at.
I'll talk. to-
well, and then the thing is. I don't. So as far as like, is like if I looked at last year's January, is that going to be comparable about what the next 6 months look as? Because in a lot of groups that I've worked in, the last 3 years are not even comparable. with everything that's going on,
Yeah.
so. But I
Well,
think
those
that's
numbers have
great
been
that you
pretty
looked at it,
static.
found oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's great that you were able to find a really good rate for
Would you
that.
agree with that, Katie, that those numbers?
They're pretty, yeah, there hasn't been a lot of change.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to go to bed dinner,
Okay.
do everything, but I really
Well, we're
appreciate you
gonna-
answering all of our questions.
You have to put a motion out and adjourn. Okay, I second it. All those in favor, aye, we're out of, okay, thank you.
I have to go as well, but thank you very much. Well, yeah, so.
Bye, everyone.
Now. You have a form. Auburn Industrial Development Authority will come to order. Roll call vote, or roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Dacey,
Here.
Mr. Cuddy,
Here.
Mr. Andre.
Here.
Ms. Weber McLeod.
Present.
Mr. Janatino,
Here.
who did I miss? Oh.
I'm here.
Mr. Lovell.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, everybody's here.
Okay. Minutes.
Robert Poyer, Council City Authority.
Oh, Mr. Boyer.
Minutes for review and approval. Is there a motion to combine the regular minute meeting or meeting minutes and the governance committee meeting minutes? Good. Second, please.
Second.
Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
Moved.
Terry,
So moved.
I'll second.
Gwen, is there any discussion or changes to the minutes? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions carried. Thank you. Bills and communications.
The only bill we have this month is the quarterly invoice to CEDA for $5,000. And that's all there is.
Katie, can you do the treasury report, please?
Sure. Do we need to accept the bill?
Oh, yeah, motion to accept the bill.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions carried. Report of treasurer.
Okay. So, we as of October, we had $44,000 in our checking account, $169,827 in our savings account. The finance committee just had a discussion about moving some of that savings account into a CD. Generations Bank has a 5-month CD with about a 5% interest rate on it. So there would be some value into, we thought, moving $150,000 there for the 5 months. And that would still leave enough cash in the bank for what our usual operating expenses are. So that's the recommendation of the finance committee, but hopefully
I'll bring that up in the formal motion.
we'll vote on that. Otherwise, there wasn't a lot of activity this month, as you can see on the profit and loss budget report. Like, we paid 0 bills. We did get $247 in interest income on the savings account that's there. We should get a better amount under the CD so that we can build that up a little bit, but we're not very far off. We're actually in a good place. If you look at January through September, for that amount of time, we had budgeted a negative $50,594, and we're only at a negative $27,585, so we're doing better than we anticipated. That's, I don't know if anybody has any questions.
As far as the EE, is there a reason why is there a reason why we're doing it this month or?
Oh,
No,
well, I'll get into that. I'll do it after this, okay?
I'm not just asking a question, so.
No problem. Anybody else have any questions about the P and L or about balance? Is there a motion on the floor to accept the balance sheet and the P and L?
So
Second, please.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions carried. I think at this time, we'll move the report, the finance committee, while it's still fresh in everybody's mind, up to this report. We went over the proposed budget and everything. One of the issues was the our fee to CEDA. We budgeted it again for next year for $20,000 because we don't know where we're going to be at yet. So just to put a number in there, basically, we put 20,000. The marketing had a slight increase, and the admin the services for the audit, projecting that normal increase in the audit, that we increased that about what, $1,300, something like that. So basically, there's not a big change in the budget for next year. But one of the things that we discussed was our savings is now in Generation Bank. And it's not making, as you can see, very much money. Taking a look at the numbers for the first 9 months of this year, our checking and our savings have been fairly static for the last 9 months. And using that as a projection, the recommendation is to take 150,000 out of the savings and put it into a CD at Generations Bank at 5% for 5 months. If I feel comfortable with 5 months, I wouldn't feel comfortable any longer. I think that's a reasonable amount of time. We'll see how it does. And that also leaves us about $65,000 ready cash money that we can work with if something comes up. So if you're not comfortable with 150, that's open for discussion. That was the recommendation.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding. Is the savings account amount, am I looking at this proposed 2024 budget?
Yeah,
And are you saying taking $150,000 out of the savings account amount that's on there? It's 169, moving it for 5 months, letting it generate some interest, and then putting it back in the savings account?
it's 169. The savings account right now is at 169,827.
Mhm.
And the recommendation would be to take 150 out of the savings and put it into the CD for 5 months.
And what was the interest rate?
5%.
Just doing a quick calculation, it'd be $3,000.
That would be at the end of 5 months. The calculation is that we would then have 153,000 and change. So that in 5 months, we would make a little over $3,000. Right now, so far this year, I think it's $387.
Yeah,
So just to add a little color to that, with the authority with the author, permitting fee by law is fairly limited. And I was just reflecting my recollection here. Usually it's time deposits, just short-term investments, bonds or notes. So for example, those are the obligations, either other local governments or authorities within the state itself, or certificates of deposit of New York State banks, generation being one. So a CD is perfectly permissible investment. So of the three normal investments that the ability can invest in that.
I should point out that Katie has done research and looked at several banks. And the only other option was another Hugo Lake Bank.
Cuba Lake National had a good.
And it would be, why don't you tell them what that is?
Well, theirs is, they have a money market that's a floating interest rate, so it can change month to month, but it's been around 5.4% for the last few months, so it's very similar. The one at Generations is a set percentage that I think it's actually a little over 5. I'd have to check again because it's been a couple of weeks since I was looking at them, but it should be around the same amount.
And my feeling was that that we shouldn't be playing with floating percentage. If we're going to do this, that we should lock it in at a certain amount and go with that.
Is there a time frame for like the 5%? Is it like gonna change anytime soon?
The Generations 5%, that's set, you get a 5-month CD, and that's the interest rate for the extent of the CD.
Is it like limited time only, or is like, if we wait a month, is that gonna, what, might we lose the opportunity?
It could change.
The interest rate.
I mean, that's what they've been offering on a sort of a special deal, get a 5-month CD, and this is what you get, but they could change that anytime.
And is there any instance, and this I'm opening this up to the board, where we need more liquidity than $45,000, or any instance that we would need any of that?
It'll be about 65,000.
65,000, is there any instance where we would need
Well,
that?
taking a look at that, what's gone on for
For the last few years.
even the last 9 months. That's been fairly static, and even if we did have an increase, my feeling is that the 65 would cover it.
the 65 being whatever the balance is in the savings account combined with what's in the checking account.
It's a yes.
And would that stay in the checking account rather than like moving it around to the savings account, or just keeping it in the checking account? The
I
44?
would,
Would we leave what's left in the savings?
In the savings.
Yeah, the nice house.
Yeah, well, 19,000.
So 150, okay.
Which we could draw on if we needed to, as long as it's in savings.
Is there any restrictions on that 5% CD by moving money? Sometimes I think you have to invest new money.
I don't, no, not that I'm aware of. They, in fact, I mean, honestly, the county IDA did this. They took money out of their generation savings account and put it into that 5-month thing. And have been getting quite a nice interest rate on it.
Good, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if we're safe and we don't get anything from any emergency costs, you know, I think it's fine for 5 months.
And that's why I said I wouldn't go any further than 5 months.
And what was Tessa's perspective? We came in on the tail end.
Yeah.
So what was she saying she wouldn't be, was it she What was she saying she didn't be comfortable with, or did I mishear?
She was talking about the budget.
Okay,
And she's and also about the savings thing, she said. She's just coming in now and she's not aware of what's going on.
got
Although we told her
it. Mhm,
that, everything has been fairly static.
right,
And she said, well, that would be comfortable, but as long as, but she didn't want to commit because she's just getting her feet wet.
And I think that's exactly my concern from my perspective, having been on the board for a long time with Bill, I don't, and Rob, I don't see like any major costs or any major like bills that we have to pay that would go beyond that 65,000. Is that? I mean, based on
You
your,
know, I mean, historically, I don't think you have, you're not like a house where, it's really back up and, somebody had to pay for that, that's, yes, and when that was a situation like that, you budget, you plan, and, potentially, some sort of open opportunity.
Hopefully, within the next 5 months, we'll be generating
Correct,
yes,
money.
correct.
so,
I mean, that's where your income comes from, and we're hopefully restoring flexibility. So. Jimmy's been around the block.
Pardon me?
I said, you've been around the block more than any of us, so. And Bill, you guys can comment on this, like, I think.
I think, I mean, I get her, because that's moving a big chunk of money from one thing to another. I'm glad that she, will have some reservations, but it's I want to like make sure that we're all comfortable doing this, and it sounds like it's an opportunity for $3,000. Well,
Understood. If you remember, Terry, you were on board when we took it out of the
yes, I
checking
do remember.
and put it in savings.
Yeah, we were big, we were, we're growing, but that's good. It's just, there's a little bit of activity, but yeah, so I'm fine with it.
Well, I think that, being conservative is the right way to go, and I feel comfortable with doing this.
Okay. Let's see here.
Yeah, I was impressed. I came in early. I knew you guys were in it, so I just came in and sat quietly. She's really on top of things.
Yeah.
She does not take risk. I was very impressed with her questions and her concerns.
School district is in.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, is there a motion on the floor to move the 150 from the savings to the CEDA Generations Bank? Second, please. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions carried. Thank you. CEDA update.
At the last meeting, it was requested to reach back out to the businesses that were interested in the ADA parcel. 14-acre parcel on Allen Street, and 2 out of the 3 have moved to other sites to try to identify better opportunities for their businesses. There is still one that's somewhat interested, still really just interested in half of the parcel, and has sort of been waiting for ADA to explain how much per acre. And there hasn't been an appraisal done on that parcel in some time. It's from the buyer's perspective. At the last, few ADA meetings ago, ADA was sort of asking of the buyer to work with the 2 buyers to get an appraisal done and split the cost of subdivision. So to put that work onto a buyer is what's turning the buyers away. So there is one that is still interested in half if possible. It's not really, doesn't seem like it's a huge rush to do anything. That person is still looking at other options that would be a little easier of a lift, parcels that have an existing building to start with. So it's up to the ADA board if we want to do something like get an appraisal done and really start looking into the value of the parcel, or we want to wait a little while and see if there is a better opportunity that comes along that would take the entire parcel, that might have a larger investment, create more jobs, be a better fit.
What's the cost of the appraisal, you know?
Commercial appraisal. Probably somewhere between almost $1,000, maybe 750 to 1,000 is my best guess.
I think, if I may, please, that's one of the areas that has been a stumbling block for us in negotiations. Because historically, we've asked them to either assume the appraisal or split the appraisal. And at this point in time, before it didn't seem to be a problem, but now something's opened up more where buyers are not willing to invest in the appraisal themselves. They feel that we should be doing the appraisal. And I think that you know, for the cost to lose a potential pilot, the cost of an appraisal is minimal, and that we shouldn't be nickel and diming that.
This particular project that is still interested is $1 million or less. So a pilot, a project fee is not going to be, it's not going to be another large project.
One large project or 10 small ones.
True.
Well, I mean, I don't think it would hurt to know how much it's worth.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like, you know, and that way we could just go about our business, getting the appraisal and then, you know, work with the person that's interested, or, you know, if that doesn't fit within the price range and the kind of project that this board wants, you know, move on. But I think, you know, it's not gonna hurt to have an appraisal.
Would it make sense to appraise that parcel and the former Terrapin parcel, so that we have an idea in case somebody does come to us, and or should we just wait until somebody comes to us and is interested in that parcel that Terrapin was interested in?
I think for the market fluctuations that are happening right now and the projects that are sort of in the pipeline, I would hold off. I wouldn't order an appraisal this month.
They tend to have a drop dead date.
They do, and you know, there are some things hinging on another business expanding, but the former Terrapin parcel is an option for that expansion. So that's why I say maybe just hold off, because after a few more things fall into place, then maybe that much larger project that's upwards of 50 million, then you can get an appraisal done and start talking about the sale of that parcel.
Sure. If that becomes a stumbling block in negotiations for her, Maureen, I would be comfortable with giving her the option of assuming the appraisal in the negotiations. You know, saying that we'll pay for the appraisal. How does the board feel about that?
Is there money in this budget right now, for example, for us to assume that expense, in which line item would it fall into? I'm not opposed, I'm just, math means the math.
I don't believe we've budgeted for that particular area. Other than miscellaneous, you know, I mean, it could be put into miscellaneous, but
Maureen, is this each time someone expresses interest? Would a previous appraisal satisfy the next person's interest in the property. Once the property is appraised, how often does it need to be appraised to satisfy what a prospective buyer or project might be looking for? Am I making sense?
Well, when someone is coming for ADA benefits, the
Mhm.
project may be citing somewhere else, so they're
Right.
just searching for the tax exemptions and abatements,
Mhm.
but for these parcels, it might be a project that is seeking both the land purchase and incentives.
Right,
So your question of, does it make sense to get an appraisal because it'll hold for either the current project or
Shelf life.
further down the road? I think appraisals have about a shelf life of 3 to 6 months. And with economic development and projects taking that much time, that's why I'm advising, let's just wait, see which projects comes up next. And what Mr. Dacey is saying is maybe give CEDA authorization to, once that keeps happening, then at that time, we would go to seek an appraisal.
Mhm.
And with the timing of these projects, I think it's very likely that CEDA could come back to this board and say, this is, we've gotten an estimate to do an appraisal, this is the project, this is why we want to do it, and get your go ahead.
yeah, I'm really kind of thinking about it from, I don't have an issue with putting something in place that enables the CEDA team to be agile. I guess I'm just saying, how do you budget for something like that? That's what I wanna know, like, does there need to be a set amount of money in this budget? That once you have the green light to do it, you're not coming back to us every other meeting saying, can I have approval to spend $750? Can you budget for something like that, is what I'm getting at.
Maybe increase the professional services line.
That's what I'm wondering, like, is that where that would go? I don't want us to be hamstringed in this if we all agree that authorizing CEDA to go ahead and pay the expense of an appraisal. By not fully understanding what that could be, and does it need to have up to a certain amount before it would need board approval, I guess is the other thing I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about this through the lens of best practice, actually.
Assuming that an appraisal. We'll give it a round number of $1,500. And the opportunity comes up probably at least twice a year.
That's where I'm going.
Should we add 3,000 to the professional services to cover that?
I think that's fair enough. Seeing is that like. This conversation started with business not wanting to do the appraisal and. Ended with, are there other properties that might. Want us to have the appraisal? I would say there's merit to that, but yeah, I mean, I also think that, I wanna make sure that, that there is support for the appraisal of the property, that the 13 acre for that, and then to like allow CEDA to have that kind of agency or agility to put an appraisal in together if needed for prospective buyer and somebody interested in incentives. I think that there's value in that, so.
Yeah, let me just say something out loud, and Rob, maybe you can help me think this. I think I'm hearing sort of 3 potential things, but I'm not sure. So one of the things that I think I'm hearing us say is, do we want to approve expending the money to do an appraisal on this specific piece of property? Then I'm hearing something that feels more policy related to me. Are we wanting to put in place a practice or a policy that enables CEDA to go ahead and just do the appraisals in alignment with a certain amount of money that we're gonna place in the budget? I think those things are related, but not the same thing, because one of them feels like we're moving into a policy or practice that may have existed before, I just don't know. And the other thing is there's a specific request to do an appraisal on this particular piece of land.
If I may.
Please, I need help.
There's a limited number of situations in which it's gonna come up, and that's situations in which a project applicant, which is to develop an ADA home, parcel.
Mhm.
Now, you're only going to want to do an appraisal for someone who is serious. And that applicant will have had to have put in an application and have gone through at least the initial project resolution part, in which case they will have had to have paid an administrative fee, which I don't know how much we're charging now. I have to go back and look. So that administrative fee will at least in part in those situations offset the cost of the appraisal. So I think that would play into what you would budget for it, because you would be receiving in a non-refundable application.
Isn't it 0.5?
I'm sorry.
0.5?
No, there's that's the administrative fee in total, but there's also an application fee.
Oh, okay.
Which is either 500 or 750. It's not 750. I would recommend bump it out to at least 750. Because in certain ways, I think it is a little bit lower than most, many if not most. They do it all over IDAs across the state, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But you know, a lot of IDAs have really upped their fees. So I think in those limited situations, you'll have offsetting administrative fees. So I think that should play into your budgeting. So if you up your professional budget, I think you think it's going to be a limited number of situations and that you will have that offsetting administrative fee, non-refundable administrative fee coming in.
So is there something, do these things have to be formal things that show up in our minutes as actions of this board is what I'm asking?
Well, I think it's something at your next finance committee. It's not something immediate. It's something that would come in those limited situations where you have someone who's serious would put in an application.
Got it.
For this. In the limited situations where they're going to purchase one of these parcels or a portion of the parcel and wants to move forward with that, because it's in that situation where you have to put in to the state and to the authority budget office the information which requires the appraisal.
Got it.
In most situations, they're going to have to go to a bank and get financing. You know, they're gonna have a mortgage. The bank will also do an appraisal. So they're going to have one anyway. But you know, the authority budget office is gonna be looking for one, and the timing of when they get their initial appraisal, an appraisal on the parcel. From CEDA, and when you get one from a bank, which is, you know, may or may not itemize the land, there might be an as-built appraisal, you know, might be all those sorts of things, they might not line up, and you might not be able to get all that anyway, so. It's gonna be a limited number of situations, and it's gonna go through that process, but you'll have that, you'll know it when you see it. In other words, it's gonna be limited, you'll know when you see it, it's gonna be serious, and it's gonna happen. So I wouldn't set aside. I wouldn't go and do appraisal on all these parcels now. Because you need to get someone who's serious and wants to buy first.
So this leads to the question I had for you, Maureen, is that if the current person is interested, but their objection is they don't want to spend $1,000 on an appraisal? And you think that if we spend that money and appraise it for them, they'll be more interested?
Well, I think their perception by looking at other sales of parcels in the park that were not owned by CEDA, some of those parcels sold for very little. And so their assumption is maybe this parcel would sell for very little as well. I think if CEDA did an appraisal, paid for it and said, this is how much it's worth, because if memory serves me, if it was 5 years ago or so, was it, the appraisal came back at $20,000 per acre, something like that. That's what sticks in my brain, is that the CEDA parcels were 20,000 the CCIDA parcels were 25,000 now in their industrial park. So even having said that, they were still interested in, well, is that what it's actually going to be? Or, can I get a deal? So
So the objection really isn't to who's paying for the appraisal as much as it's to the price of
how
the
much
actual.
is it possibly
So
going to cost?
We want to prove to them what it's.
You would
Right,
have to prove what it's worth.
Yeah.
And say, this is what we're going to stick to as a sell price, and then is that feasible for the business owner to buy it at that price plus the cost of the building, or the
I'm
other
just talking about the
properties?
current objection, like how do we get it past wherever it is now, and if that objection is, oh, I don't believe that it's worth what you guys say it's worth. But I also don't want to prove that. And they just want us to prove it to them, then, I guess we could do that.
No, I think it's more of if you're shopping of here's option A, B, or C, and option A with ADA comes with, you have to outlay $1,000 to do your own appraisal. It's not very desirable. Whereas you look at another property that is marketed with a building and there's comparable sales for something like that, and it's very easy to say this is X. ADA is asking for something unusual in the real estate world.
I don't want to go into the,
Property before you buy. I've bought houses that the bank will appraise it, but you don't get an appraisal before there's an asking price, right? If somebody puts a property up for sale, it's not appraised when they put it up, the bank will do an appraisal on it.
Correct.
So that's not that unusual. I guess the question is about this particular property and the particular person who's interested in it. If it's just that they don't want to pay for the appraisal, but they want it appraised, I don't have a problem paying for it.
Well, or does ADA want to just give a purchase price without an appraisal then?
he also heard that the other properties in the area were sold for less.
Right, that's what she just said.
And I don't want to go into details, but that did happen, and we ended up selling a piece of property for far less than what it was appraised for per acre because of past history. So I know where this person's coming from. But at some point, we have to be realistic and say that number is really too low. There's a number in between what the appraisal is, maybe, but not that number. So
I'm just trying to understand the objection, if it's like a matter of spending $750, or if it's like a matter of the overall price that they believe it is. Have we given them a price?
We have not given them the price.
So they don't.
And have they made application?
No.
Okay. So if we were to have this piece of property appraised at this point, it would be like for our own knowledge. I'm just trying to understand actually. So I guess what I'm trying to tease apart is like, is there anything in this conversation we need to make a motion for?
Well, I think that what we need to do is to come to an agreement that we're going to put X amount of dollars more into the professional services of the budget for next year. And then when we vote on the budget, we'll vote with that number. And because we have to vote on the budget because it has to go to the state when, Katie?
This month,
Next month.
No,
So
this month.
this month,
the end of this month.
yeah.
So if
And
we,
we're saying we need to vote on this budget today.
so if we were to amend that number, and that would be part of that would go in for the vote of the budget. We don't need a separate vote to do that. We do need an agreement that should go in the budget.
I'm not opposed to adding $3,000.
Bill,
to.
I'm good with it.
Terry, fine, Jim, Dan. Okay, so we'll put that in the professional services.
And Tess will be made aware that we made this.
Yeah, I'll explain that to her. Now that I have a right email address. She gave us the wrong email address. We've been trying to contact her, can't do it. So, okay. Any more? Thank you very much. That was very good. So small business support. I don't have no idea.
Okay.
Okay, why don't we, I gave you the report on the finance committee, now the 2024 budget. If we amend that to 11,700. The numbers, the net income, you can adjust that, I don't. How would that affect that?
So the negative will be 3,000 more, it'll be 19.
19,050. Okay. Everybody got that? The two changes are 11, the professional services proposed would be 11,700. And the net income would be minus 19,050. Is there a motion on the floor to accept the proposed budget?
So
Second, please. Jim? Is there any further discussion? Discussion?
No. This is explaining to what we paid. We're putting through the-
All those in favor?
I,
Opposed? Abstentions carried. Thank you. So we can forward that on to the state. Okay. Does any board member have any updates that they'd like to bring up?
I'd like to very quickly, last month I brought up beanball, the old automatic drills. And that's still all moving forward, but they weren't happy when they were talking to this body about it. They didn't appear to be anyways, but I didn't have the right people with them. So they, when the time is right, they will reach out to CEDA. But there's still a ways off. There's power lines that have to be moved first. But it really looks like it's gonna happen. It's great for that plant.
I would just encourage them to talk to us sooner than later, because even we work with businesses, even with nice incentives and energy rebates and lots of other things, not just
Yeah.
data benefits.
Yeah, I'll keep working. I'll keep talking to them about it.
And also through New York State Empire State Development, their economic development grant funds, and the current round and application is due next week for this round. There should be another round by the end of the year, but those things, you need to have those applications in ahead of time, ahead of spending money on anything in the project in order to maximize the benefit. So
Okay, I'll keep buzzing them. But the problem is that's a huge company, huge, giant. It's global. So
Yeah.
there's so many layers. So I see the top dog from the Northeast once a quarter. And it's above his head too. So it's,
well, my cards are out front. Just give them a card, let them know. I just don't want them to miss any opportunities to help them
Okay.
expand.
yeah.
Derek?
Actually, on a separate note, or, because Bill, are you done with the?
Yes, sir, I am.
I want to follow up on Rob's suggestion on increasing the administrative fee to $750. Because I think that would be something I would be interested in, enacting in the next meeting. And I don't think it'll affect our budget, it's basically a fee. So if the board is interested in bringing that back to increase the administrative fee, I would like to do that.
To be clear, it's the application.
Yeah.
And to this would cover things. Like we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Really putting more in with
The rest of the
costs,
They-
right? To say,
So the city's gonna start doing the same thing too. So when it comes to the, people coming, businesses coming in, all the work that goes in and, we're increasing the administrative fee. So that CEDA can do what they need to do, application, yes, application, but, So are we in
Yeah.
agreement?
I think so.
So next month we can vote on.
Anybody else? Anybody have a need to go into executive session? Okay. Upcoming events, the ABO training is October 25th from 9:30 to 11. Did Tessa sign up for? ABO
Not that
training?
I'm aware of. I'll ask her, I'll check with her.
Now you got to write the email, huh?
We still are shy of one member. And I have,
I'm working on it.
well, I've been working on it and it's,
Yeah, so. I'll just tell you right now, there's an email going around about another board, and Mike's he's not gonna make any more appointments. He wants to wait until after the election and let whoever the mayor elect is make appointments, so.
okay,
I'm just letting you know, there was
No,
a board that's short, I think 2 people, and he said. In 3 weeks, there's gonna be. A mayor elect, and we'll let that person proceed forward with the appointments.
This person I've been working on for years, so. The person can wait another 2 months.
the existing board has done very well and I appreciate your efforts. Without that 9th person, so thank you. Is there a motion on the floor to adjourn?
So,
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions carried. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Good. Good night, Billy.